Today is Monday, October 23rd. We'll update you on the war in the Middle East, including why the conflict appears to be spreading, new efforts to get aid into Gaza, and what we know about the first 2 hostages freed. Also, the one-time nominee to lead Republicans in the House has been voted out, so there's now a long list of people hoping to take the reins. Plus, a new free way to file taxes is coming, what scientists are saying about a mysterious record-breaking radio signal detected, and the 2 highly anticipated movies that went head-to-head in theaters over the weekend. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. War in the Middle East already seems to be spreading, just as the world worried it would. Israel says it has stepped up its airstrikes in Gaza. Plus, it's widened the attacks to include targets in Syria and the occupied West Bank, while the back and forth has also intensified between Israel and militants in Lebanon. With that, Israel started evacuating even more people who live near the Lebanese border. Israeli authorities say they're especially worried the Hezbollah terror group has been emboldened by the attacks by the Hamas terror group that killed more than 1,400 people earlier this month. In response to all of this, the U.S. sent more military assets to the region to help Israel. Plus, the U.S. ordered non-emergency personnel to leave an American embassy and consulate in Iraq, fearing threats of terrorism, kidnapping, and civil unrest. But for now, Israel's top priority still seems to be in Gaza. It says it's stepping up bombings ahead of a ground invasion, hoping to hit targets that could be risky to troops in the next phase of war. The Israeli military says it's targeting Hamas infrastructure and fighters who are still launching regular rocket barrages into Israel too, often and purposely from residential areas. So while targeting Hamas, Israeli airstrikes have also hit schools, homes, places of worship, and a lot more. Many people have already died there. And now Gaza's housing ministry says at least 42% of homes in the Gaza Strip have been damaged or destroyed since Israel started the retaliatory airstrikes. And it says about 1.5 million people have been displaced. But people there did get at least a little help over the weekend. Nearly 35 trucks were able to get through the Egyptian border crossing in the last couple of days. That's progress. But the UN says Gaza would actually need about 100 trucks of aid a day to meet its most urgent needs. Israel says it's going to keep allowing the flow of critical assistance like food and water, but it won't allow fuel for fear that it could end up in the hands of Hamas. And there's only enough fuel left in Gaza for a couple of days, meaning hospitals will lose their backup electricity, ambulances won't be able to run, and so on. To be continued. 2 Americans who spent 2 weeks as hostages of Hamas have now been set free. The group's leaders released Judith Renan and her teenage daughter, Natalie, to the Red Cross. The Renans are from the Chicago area, but were in Israel visiting family when they were kidnapped early this month. Information has not been released yet about how they were treated in captivity, though the teen's father told news outlets he spoke to his daughter and, quote, she's doing good. Video from the White House shows both mother and daughter were able to talk on the phone with President Biden. And now the plan is for them to come back to the U.S. early next week. Hamas said it released them at the request of mediators from Qatar. American officials have been in close contact with Qataris from the beginning, since they're a U.S. ally who actually has close contact with Hamas. But it's still not clear why the Renans were the first hostages to be set free. As the Washington Post reports, more than 200 others are believed to be held by Hamas, including at least 10 Americans. They range in age from less than a year old to older than 85. Negotiations are still underway to rescue as many more of them as possible. House lawmakers are once again scrambling with no clear path ahead. The GOP's last nominee, Jim Jordan, failed to get enough votes 3 different times last week, losing more votes each time. So in a secret ballot, most of his Republican colleagues voted that Jordan should not remain the party's nominee. And with that, he had no other choice but to drop out. Now 9 other Republican lawmakers are trying to get the job. They include Tom Emmer, who's a longtime ally of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Jack Bergman, who's the highest-ranking combat veteran to be elected to Congress, Mike Johnson, who's the vice chair of the Republican Conference, political newcomer Byron Donalds, who's closely aligned with former President Trump, and more. Candidates are expected to pitch themselves to their colleagues and answer questions this evening ahead of an internal GOP vote as soon as tomorrow morning, and then a full House vote after that. Once a speaker is in, the the House can finally start to consider President Biden's $106 billion funding request that includes aid to Israel and Ukraine. Plus, they'll be able to talk about averting a government shutdown in just a few weeks. But former Speaker McCarthy says even now, the Speaker's race is an uphill battle, and they can't do anything else until a Speaker is chosen. It was a wet weekend for a lot of people in tourist destinations. Tropical storm Norma came ashore near the Mexican resort city of Los Cabos, and Hurricane Tammy made landfall on the Caribbean island of Barbuda. They both hit land as Category 1 hurricanes. First, Norma downed trees and left tens of thousands without power. The storm is now moving across mainland Mexico. Up to 18 inches of rain could fall in some areas today. Some rain could also reach Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Then there was Hurricane Tammy. It triggered an island-wide blackout in Barbuda, damaged some homes, and caused heavy rain across the Leeward Islands. Now it's expected to bring dangerous surf and rip currents in the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. More news is coming up, but first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever felt like you know what you want to do, but for whatever reason, you just aren't doing that thing, even though you want it? If so, you aren't alone. And therapy may be able to help you figure out what's holding you back. One of the things therapy helped me figure out over the years is that getting mad or upset at myself when I didn't do exactly as I had hoped, well, that only made things worse. Instead, I was able to take the pressure off while I simultaneously learned what was going on for me. And it made a world of difference. So if you're interested, but you don't know where to start, BetterHelp is an online, convenient, and flexible way to give therapy a try. Just fill out the brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And pro tip, don't be afraid to switch therapists until you find the right one for you. There's no additional charge for that. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. Astronomers have detected a mysterious and record-breaking radio signal. It's the most distant and energetic radio burst ever observed. They say the burst emitted about 30 years worth of the sun's energy in a fraction of a second, and that it came from a galaxy so far away, it took 8 billion years to reach scientists here on Earth. In other words, it's 1.5 times more ancient and distant than the previous record holder. Scientists say they still don't know exactly what causes these radio bursts, but they can still be used as tools to map the structure of the universe and perhaps figure out what happened to matter that's seemingly missing. At least that's what astronomers said in the research published a few days ago in the journal Nature. So far, only about 50 radio bursts like this have ever been detected. But astronomers are hoping future radio telescopes, like ones under construction now in South Africa and Australia, will help them detect thousands more. The U.S. Supreme Court decided to take on a high-stakes case that could shape the future of free speech online and the government's role in it. And as part of that decision, the High Court overturned a lower court's ruling that had banned government officials from communicating with social media platforms about moderating misinformation online. So this case was first brought up last year when the attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri sued the Biden administration. The suit argued officials from the FBI, CDC, and more violated the First Amendment right to free speech by telling tech companies to remove or dampen what they warned was false content on issues like the COVID-19 pandemic or integrity of elections. The Biden administration says it only discouraged certain false content for the sake of public health and safety. But a lower court had agreed with the AGs that it was a violation of the Constitution. Well, now the U.S. Supreme Court says not so fast. It is allowing that type of communication once again, at least until the justices can consider this case themselves. So stay tuned. Elon Musk's overhaul of what used to be Twitter may just be getting started. He wrote on X that there will be 2 new tiers of premium subscriptions launching soon, one with ads, one without. Musk didn't give any other specifics about the upcoming plans or their exact prices. Right now in the US, there's only one subscription tier, and it's optional. Users can pay $8 a month to get premium features like the blue checkmark and ability to edit their posts. Plus, they can put out longer posts and videos than users with free plans. Meanwhile, global web traffic to X has gone down 14% as compared to this time last year when it was still called Twitter. While one of X's main competitors, TikTok, has seen web traffic go up by about 23%. X says it's planning many new features, though, and that the subscriptions are just one of the many upcoming changes. Think of it kind of like the autumn version of Barbenheimer. You know, the nickname for the opening weekend of both the movies Barbie and Oppenheimer. Well, now, once again, two hugely anticipated new releases went up against one another at the box office this weekend. First, Killers of the Flower Moon, which opened on Friday. It's based on a best-selling book directed by Martin Scorsese and stars big-name actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Brendan Fraser, and more. It has rave reviews and the backing of a strong Oscar campaign. So a lot of people thought that would easily top the box office this weekend. But it was also the second weekend for fans to see Taylor Swift's movie version of her Eras tour. And here in the US and Canada, Taylor Swift came out on top. Well, that's it for the main news. So now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, support for today's episode comes from Lumi. We are all busy people, going from one thing to another. So when we're on the go, we need a deodorant that will keep us fresh without having to worry about it. And that's why I'm loving Lumi. I use it as my new go-to favorite deodorant for my underarms. It's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. And if that wasn't good enough on its own, Lumi is a whole-body deodorant, the first of its kind. So it's seriously safe to use anywhere on your body, from your head down to your toes. And it does all of that while being aluminum-free, baking soda-free, and paraben-free. Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers, too. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And by the way, the deodorant wipes are so perfect for on the go. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers are getting $5 off a Lumi starter pack with code NEWSWORTHY at LumiDeodorant.com. That's LUME deodorant.com. And that equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you visit LumiDeodorant.com and use that code NEWSWORTHY. Okay, now back to Money Monday. Some American taxpayers in 13 states will have the chance to test a new free way to file their taxes next year. The IRS released more details about its planned pilot program for software that will apparently be similar to TurboTax, but free of charge. If all goes well with the first filers in early 2024, the free electronic tax filing system will gradually open up to more users. But this software may not be for everyone. It won't allow users to itemize deductions and will allow only certain tax credits and certain forms of income. So, which 13 states are taking part first? Well, 9 of them are the ones without a state income tax, to help keep things streamlined for filers. The other 4 states are Arizona, California, Massachusetts, and New York. They all agreed to work with the IRS to integrate the new IRS software with their state websites for filing tax returns. The agency says it's open to including any state willing to participate and expects more states to join if things go smoothly. Reports say the special invitations to taxpayers will be sent out in mid-February. All right, thank you so much for listening today and every day. We'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.